my face in the box, Andrew? Oh, there it is. Okay. Hi,
There we
we
go.
apologize for that. Technology is something else. It could be the time of the day. I'm not quite sure, but my sincerest apologies. And thank you for hanging in there with us. And I forgot to say, please type in the box where in the region you are located. And if you have any questions, please type them and we will definitely get those questions answered. So now let's just go to the next question. Um, do you feel most people are in tune with their mental health, Karan?
No, I think many of our
Why?
mothers, our
Okay.
fathers, our brothers, our sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins walk around lacking this part of self-awareness and lack the tools or the understanding that sometimes we need help. And it's no different than if I broke my toe or if I broke my neck or if I had the flu. I'm going to go and seek help because I need relief. Because I need relief. And one of the most challenging things with my work as a mental health advocate is dealing with the fact that most people don't understand depression and other forms of mental health, mental illness. Very often the result is death. Even if you have support, even if it's treated, it is not always clearly understood why some people don't make it through. And suicide is a very difficult topic, especially when you're dealing with children. And we've seen a lot of young people die by their own hand since the quarantining has been
Mhm.
going on. They're disconnected from their communities, disconnected from many times their families and all that they know. We spoke earlier in the beginning about people who are losing their jobs. I'm very fortunate that I'm able to produce from home. So the work that I've been doing and talked about doing for a very long time, this is normal for me. But for many other people, their work is the only time they get away from their kids. And now they're all home, or their work is all they had to really give them a sense of identity. And when you lose a part of your identity or what you believe is your identity, you have to find a new way to cope. And mental health allows us, it gives us the tools to cope differently. Sometimes that's through talk therapy, sometimes that's through medication, sometimes that's through various other forms of treatment, depending on where you fall on that scale. But help is available. I don't think most people are in tune with this part of themselves. I believe a lot of women, especially Black women, have been depressed for a very long time by carrying so much weight. You can only carry so much weight before your legs buckle.
Right.
And
Oh,
spiritual healing is also a responsibility. That is something that we've neglected in our ministries and our churches for so many years. We don't talk about mental health in the church.
no.
Not for real,
Mm-mm.
for real.
That's very true. And in some churches, they have it listed. We're praying for mental health victims. What do you have to say when they label it as someone who has a mental health as being a victim?
Pray for yourself. Don't lay hands on me. Keep that over there.
Okay.
Keep that over there. It's really interesting because also part of the stigma for being a veteran is everybody thinks that we got a pack of bullets in our car about to blow stuff up every time.
Hmm.
Whenever you hear about something tragic that happens and they mention military service in that context, PTSD does not just come from war. PTSD can happen through homelessness. PTSD can happen through a tragic illness or the loss of a loved one. PTSD can be triggered by so many things. And all you're get an understanding. And that's what we don't have in the church. And I've said for years, I've said for many years, and you'll hear me say this over and over again every time I'm interviewed about my faith and my mental health. I will say the same thing. Every single ministry on this earth needs to have qualified help available, and they don't. Your pastoral counseling does not add up. You need someone who's trained in trauma. You need someone who's able to address the mental health concerns of people that go beyond their obedience to showing up at the storehouse.
Yes. 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 Wow. That's amazing. And I'm glad you brought forth all those good very valid points. I actually have a little tear in my eye from hearing that. Um, what are some of the challenges that you have observed in your career that has spanned it over 25 years that people with mental illness have had in the workplace?
Privacy is a huge issue because privacy should be respected. Um, there's judgment, and then there are people out here who are armchair diagnosis. They're giving their diagnosis of other people's issues. It's not your business, but we need to all know when to recognize when someone else needs help. Um, we need to all know when someone else is in danger, but for that, we would have to pay attention.
Hmm.
We have to learn to listen to each other. We have to learn to relate in a different way. Um, because when we don't, tragedies happen. That's a fact. In the workplace, it can be a little bit more difficult because some people are able to compartmentalize what's going on with them emotionally and hide it through their work. Or some other people don't have the tools to do that. So it's important that all of us who claim sanity, and people who say they're sane make me nervous. It makes me itch. But people who claim to be sane need to understand the signs of abuse. They need to understand the cycle of abuse. They need to understand what it looks like when someone is in need and in trouble. It goes beyond, you know, feeding somebody in a soup kitchen. It also
Yeah.
has to do with the person that's right next to you every single day. It has to do with your children, learning how to recognize the signs in children. Oftentimes, some things are revealed through the process of grief, losing a loved one. It may have always been there. Whatever it is that they're dealing with, it may have always been there, but grief can pull it forward.
Hmm. Absolutely. And so, if you were to be speaking right now to a stakeholder, a leader of an organization, what would you tell that individual about engagement of underrepresented individuals in their organization, specifically those with disabilities, mental health and physical disabilities, how to best retain them in their workforce?
Provide support. Provide support. Support means more than just having a healthcare line. It means providing benefits that actually speak to the whole human being, not just to a medical care package. We need to take better care of one another. We need to take better care of ourselves, making sure that your physical health is as well as you can be, making that a component, making that a benefit, making that a benefit, allowing people to have time off. Mental health days should be a regular thing. You should not have to use up your time if you're having a moment. You should be able to get help and not be penalized. So, speaking directly to leaders, you need to have qualified help on speed dial to help your people. You need to recognize and understand the signs because this is the human condition. This is the human condition. People out here aren't crazy. People are experiencing life. And what happens when you experience life, it has ebbs and flows, it has ups and downs. It's a wild ride, and everybody doesn't hang on as well as others. So
Woo,
we have to take care of each other.
absolutely. Now, I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about, you touched on it a little earlier, but disparities when it comes to race, um, when you talk about mental health. Do you want to talk about that?
Absolutely. People of color, people who come from communities of color, um, especially Black people. I'm a Black person, I'm a Black woman, I'm a mother, often don't know how to find help. They don't know how to ask for help. So they don't. We have to stop telling people to pray it away. We have to stop telling people that tomorrow is going to be a better day. Let's deal with today and get very clear on the fact that a lot of these disparities exist because of access to care. We don't
Mhm.
always have access to mental health care. It can be very expensive, but it's also a very underutilized portion of a benefits package, right? It's these disparities exist because racism. These disparities exist because our communities remain underserved. We don't
Mhm.
talk about the families who have to travel to go to the supermarket because they live in a food desert. We don't
Mhm.
talk about what happens when the money runs out, when the bus fare runs out, or there's no Uber to get because you live in a rural area. We don't talk
Mhm.
about how we treat our elders.
Mhm.
And a lot of aging is hard.
It is.
Getting old and losing the function of your body and your mind is a difficult thing. Many of our elders also suffer from depression and anxiety. Right now, everything surrounding COVID-19 is anxiety and inducing. It's anxiety inducing. Um, it can be a place of fear or it can become a place of power. And I believe taking hold and understanding the human condition better, respecting people for their humanity, not stigmatizing people or calling somebody. Now, people call me crazy all the time. I'm fine with it. I've been called crazy since I was little. But what I do know is I'm not.
Right.
I'm a wise, very high functioning person who lives with depression.
Right. Right. You
I'm
may be
super
fine.
high.
Yeah, but you may be fine with it and be confident in it because that's where your self-esteem is. But people need to be also aware that someone else may not be okay with it because you don't know what's going on inside of them. And they may laugh it off like, okay, but you don't know what happens when they're behind closed doors, when no one's watching, what goes on internally from someone laughing and say, you're crazy or something of that nature, or you're bipolar or whatever the person may joke and say. So that goes back to those microaggressions that people we talk about. So people need to be very careful about the words that they say because words actually can affect people. So people need to be cognizant of the words that they say.
Words have power. Words have
Yes.
power, and words can create movement and energy as well. I fell in love with words at a young age. That's why I'm a journalist. But people also don't realize that our children are over medicated. Our
Mhm.
children are over medicated because more times than not, Black children are looked at as a threat in elementary school.
Mhm.
They are made to be. They're more likely to be hurt because they don't. Our children are not recognized in this American space. And anti-blackness is global. Let me be clear. Anti-blackness is global. But children are more likely, Black children are more likely to be treated worse and more violently and overly medicated before they even reach adolescence. And that's
Mm.
something we have to continue to fight for as well.
Totally concur with that. Being an army brat, I grew up overseas in Germany, and I actually didn't have culture shock as far as, and of course, Germans stare at you when you're downtown and things of that nature, but they weren't rude to me. As far as culture shock, as far as being a black individual, came when the school I went to once we moved to Southern Virginia. That was a culture shock for me, and that I just found that interesting when I first got here. I was like, why does it feel more strange to be in Virginia than it does to be in Germany? And that's very interesting. Um, You have written many articles, you've interviewed thousands of people with podcasts, articles, everything. But when you talk to individuals who actually have gone through something, it's versus talking about it from another person's perspective, why is that more impactful? For example, this conversation we're having now is about the lived experience. You're talking about your lived experience of being a disabled veteran with multiple disabilities. I am a person with multiple disabilities to include mental health. Why is that so impactful when you're telling a story to have actually lived it?
That's a really good question. It's so impactful because there's not a touch point where nobody can relate. Everybody can relate to something in your story. I live my life as a storyteller through radio, through podcasts, through the production work I do. I tell stories. Even through my photography, I tell stories. I study the human condition. I love people. I genuinely love people. And you mentioned confidence a little while ago. I am extraordinarily confident, but nobody knew what happened at the end of the night when I would be balled up in a corner. Nobody
Yeah.
remembers the day when I could not get out of bed or pick myself up off the floor.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers because nobody was there. I stayed hidden. I became very good at isolating. And I made the excuse that I would rather be heard than seen. But then you would miss all this.
Mhm.
But the truth of the matter is, we are all a part of the same human family, and our experiences matter. The differences in our stories matters. The color of my skin matters because it tells a different tale about my experience. And when people say they don't see color, you a lie and the truth ain't in you. You see it, I
Yes.
see it, we see it. And if you discount who I am as I show up, why would I listen to you for anything?
Mm. Thank you. Please tell us about some of the projects that you're working on now.
Wow. I have I have 6 podcasts that are currently in production right now. I'm also work with our good friend and mentor, Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver, with the Perfect Pitch Masterclass, which is coming up on May 25th, next Monday. We're gearing up to help people leverage their expertise for placement in the media so they can uplevel their businesses and uplevel their lives and get more exposure and get the right kind of attention. So in the Perfect Pitch Masterclass, we teach people how to get different forms of media and to reach the right people to get your message out into the world. And that's perfectmediapitch.com. To register, we start on Monday. I'm really excited about that. I also have a bunch of offspring. You're welcome. It's my gift to the world, who are home with me right now. And I'm so excited to be out of the house right now. So excited. And I'm so great, but I'm so glad to be away from my kids right now. I love them, but they are, it's been a lot. It's been a lot. Children being home all day, every day, not being able to have a moment. Um, and that's a huge part of self-care too. I continue my work as an activist for women. I continue my work to support people with mental health and women veterans especially, and to continue to be an advocate for sexual assault survivors as well.
That's awesome. I love the work you do, and you are a great mentor. Oh, I forgot to ask you, what is one of the your favorite books or movies that help form who you are today?
Oh, girl, mahogany. I think my favorite book. There's a book by Gavin De Becker called The Gift of Fear. That was a life changing shift for me about learning how to set boundaries and listening to myself.
Mm.
Toni Morrison's The Source of Self Regard. It blows my mind every time I open it up. I grow an inch. Um,
Mhm.
I love film. I love all kinds of things about film, but I love being a storyteller. It really, and as a creator, it brings me new life every time I have something that I can hold in my hand, something that can become tangible. How exceptional Black women lead. Dr. Avis Jones the Weaver, her book is an excellent opportunity to learn more about the women who are changing this world. Um, and music. Music is how I shift my life on all fronts.
Mhm. Music does do something to you, especially depending on what type of your mood you're in. It can definitely lift your mood and change your mood. So music is very powerful.
Absolutely.
And are you going to give any tips about how to show up? Just like one or two tips to show up. Everybody's doing virtual meetings, and you are a guru about how to show up looking your best. So, can you just give two giveaways about how to come across looking your best on those Zoom calls, those Skype calls? Can you give something away?
Yes. Can I give three?
Sure.
Okay. So the first rule of thumb is to face the light, darling. Spotlight's on you. It's time. Face the light. Always have light facing you so people can see your face and hear your words. Take care of the clutter behind you. If there's anything that's in your environment that's distracting, it's going to take away from your message. And the third thing is make sure people can hear you by using an external mic. It just helps bring your sound forward. It helps your voice come through. And technology is always going to be fallible. It's always going to shift. You're always going to have some technical difficulty, but know what your message is. Face the light. Oh, one more. Make sure that your camera is at or slightly above eye level.
Mhm.
It makes a huge difference.
Thank you so much. And everyone, please hit like and share because I know you had to get some gems from this wonderful message. Before we close out with the last question, I'm going to go and see if we have any questions for you. 1 second.
Oh, and everybody can find me everywhere. Humanism.
Okay, let's see. Um, I don't have my assistant with me today, so it's hard
That's
doing
okay. I hope
so.
you have some questions. I'm an open book with this thing.
um, Rashima from New York, he said, "Thank you so much for your service." Shelly said, "Yes, those boundaries, and it's okay to say no."
It's
And
healthy to say no.
yes, and I don't have any questions right now. Let me go over to Facebook 1 second. And everybody, no one type where you're from. I see people online, 30 people watching. Type where you're located, please. Where are you guys located? Uh, okay. Any questions on this side?
I will say this while you're looking for, while you're searching for questions.
Uh-huh.
I want to reiterate it's okay not to be okay. It's
Mm,
okay not to be okay. Some days
yes.
are better than others, some days are not so great, but days, hours, moments do pass. And if you need help, help is available. I think Taraji P. Henson, her foundation that she named after her father, is providing free mental health services for people all over the country, for communities of color that are affected by COVID-19. Um, things, apps like Talkspace, situation, having teleworking makes it a more comfortable and private environment because you don't have to leave your house if you want to get help or if you just need someone to talk to. Sometimes it comes
Mhm.
down to access to care.
Absolutely. Well, can you share your information again, just to make sure everyone has it if they would like to get in contact with you?
Absolutely. You can find me everywhere online at Quranism. That's Caronism. My website is Quranism.com. I welcome you to come and look around, see some of my photography work, read about what I've done in the press and all my work, and da, 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 and that's my little bragging space. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm not shy. I won't bite, not yet. Um, but
Thank you.
thank you so much for having me today. This has been amazing.
Thank you so much for being so authentic with your words and providing such valuable information. And everyone, I'm inviting you to join my Facebook group, which would be at bit.ly slash DEIGC. We'll be having trainings coming up next week, and it's a safe space where professionals can talk freely about diversity and inclusion. And again, we'll also have some training, and sometimes we'll have guest speakers. So I look forward to seeing you there. As always, feel free to reach me in my inbox, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful evening. Peace, love.